This album is more certified lover boy than certified lover boy. Drake dropped a surprise album, honestly, Nevermind, last night at midnight, and honestly, I was very surprised that he dropped an album. It seems like just yesterday the competition between Donda and CLB was happening, and yet here we are already with a new Drake album. When I saw the cover and the track list, somehow I automatically just thought it was going to be summertime bangers. However, I was completely wrong with it being a bunch of dance tracks. And I see that the internet is just completely split up because some people are calling this album genius. You could play this at parties, a lot of DJs could play it, replayability, all that kind of stuff. And some people are just calling it elevator music. And after my first listen, honestly, I can sort of see both sides. We all know that he made this album as something very experimental, and I respect the hell out of Drake for doing something experimental, especially being such a large mainstream artist. I really think experimenting like this is something that Drake absolutely needed to do. And this album is riddled with different types of instrumental, especially Afro, house, EDM beats, and just so much more. And it really does feel as though there are more instrumental on this track than there are vocals. But I think that's the whole point of the album, right? Just to listen to the instrumentals, listen to the tracks, and just kind of vibe and sway your hips, right? Because honestly, the lyrics are pretty pedestrian and surface level, but how far down and deep can you really go on an album like this that is really just purely meant for dancing? Like I said, the project is for hip swinging and late night romantical relationships. And honestly, after my first listen to it, I really wasn't feeling this album that much. I mean, I listened to it 2 p.m. in a very, very hot car right after I get off of work. And music is a mood, music is a vibe, and this album is not 2 p.m. in a hot, sweaty car after work, moods and vibes and emotions. This album is 2 a.m. in a club or alone with your girl or your significant other sipping Pinot, okay? Now listen, this transition between the intro and falling back, in my opinion, is not good. It's such a soft intro. Honestly, this intro had me floating. I love the intro to this album. But then it just goes right into Falling Back, which in my opinion is definitely the worst song on the album. Like, how can you start off this album with the worst song? I probably would have just cut this song off the album in general. The instrumental wasn't that good. It wasn't up to par with the rest of the songs, and the vocals were also not good, a little pitchy for my taste. I mean, this is just so beautiful. Like, what? I mean, Falling Back, I mean, that just hits you, and especially after such a beautiful intro like that, I did not want to be pretty much jump scared after that intro. But honestly, it gets better from there with Text Go Green, Keeper, I really enjoyed, Calling My Name, you know, a pretty good run of songs here. And then you have Sticky, which was pretty much your first rap song on this album, even though, you know, it wasn't as heavy as Jimmy Cooks. So you really only have 2 hip-hop songs on this album with Sticky and Jimmy Cooks. But, you know, as this track list goes on, from Massive, Flights Booked, Overdrive, Downhill, you know, I did find myself enjoying the instrumentals more than, you know, the first couple of songs. And so just like that, I just kind of started vibing and really zoning out into this house and dance music. I found myself really not listening to the lyrics really whatsoever. Obviously, sonically, I'm listening to Drake's melodies, but I really think the instrumentals of Downhill and Overdrive were my 2 favorite on the album. You have a lot of these really nice guitar riffs. I used to wonder how you could swear it's for life. Downhill has that little bit of more like Afro drums, and I really enjoyed that. I wasn't that big of a fan of Tie That Binds and Liability either. I really don't like it when the vocals in a song are pitched down throughout the whole song. You know, there can be segments or parts of the song where it does that, whether the voice is pitched high or low, but when it's just low throughout the whole song, it kind of gets old really fast. However, I thought Jimmy Cooks was absolute fire. Gotta throw a party for my day ones. They ain't in the studio, but they'll lay some. Honestly, that's the kind of Drake I love so much more than the dancehall Drake. You know, I get what he's doing there, and I know he has a massive fan base with that. And, you know, a lot of you watching this probably thoroughly enjoy this album and like this type of Drake. But the Jimmy Cooks Drake is just much more my cup of tea than the rest of this album is. I also think 21 Savage delivered an incredible feature. I think 21 Savage is just a monster on pretty much every feature he does. But I can see where the genius in this album is. DJs are going to scoop up these songs, play them in a club, play them in a dance hall, or wherever people are going to want to vibe to. However, to some, especially hip hop purists and hip hop fans, they're probably not going to like this album, because I can also see how some hip hop fans are calling this elevator music. Sometimes, especially in these longer songs that are 4 or 5 minutes of just straight instrumental, a lot of hip hop fans really don't want that. They're going to get very, very bored with these kinds of instrumentals, and this is not what they're looking for. However, Drake is a very diverse artist, and I respect the hell out of him for that. Because when you're doing the same thing over and over again, I think that is the part that gets a little boring. So yeah, this is definitely a little bit refreshing to listen to, even if it's not so much my cup of tea, because I don't want an album with Jimmy Cook's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. When I hear an album, I don't want to say every song sounds the same, which I really don't think is the case with this album, and I just think he switched it up a really good amount. And overall, even though this album is dance, I think the thing where it gets me is I've heard Drake do so many more better dance tracks, like One Dance, Too Good, Controlla. Those songs are absolutely amazing, and most of these songs, I would say, don't even really compare to those 3 tracks. So this was kind of a weird surprise drop from Drake. I honestly didn't expect it at all. And I think even if I do listen to this at 2 a.m. sipping some Pinot, I'm really not going to have this album on replay. It's really not my personal cup of tea, but I can see where it attracts audiences. But what did you think of Honestly Nevermind by Drake? Are you on the side that thinks this album is genius, that vibes to it? Or are you on the side that thinks this is elevator music? This is a really polarizing album so far in the about 16 hours that it's been released, so let me know your thoughts below. I appreciate you for coming by. Please subscribe to the channel if you love talking music, making music, and listening to music just as much as I do. Follow me on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram at EJSpark1, and as always, you know what it is. It's peace, love, I love s'mores, EJ. Ow.